to yourself for 30 minutes.
Yeah, just do the
and
show.
Then realize afterwards that you were all alone.
I'd be like, wow, there's no comments. What happened today? I mean, I know we switched our time a little while back, but I think people have caught up to us, but maybe they have not caught up to us. No, I don't think so. Hey, we have no guest again today, and we're in proximity again today. So we're going to talk. We have some ideas. We have some connections. These shows only work if you participate in them, though. We're going to talk about
constructive
feedback,
giving and receiving.
Yep, some AI stuff, some all-around general ideas about good things that you should do for your own training, for your team's training. There's a concept I read about it in Harvard something business review or something. It's basically is your team feeling crazy overworked, but you're just not even getting a lot of productivity out of them? What's that about? So we'll talk about that and more on the Backpack Show.
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gargone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show. Wow. So first into the comment section today, Chloe, who I think changed her profile picture, don't you?
Don't be a creep.
Very, very nice. Very smart.
She always looks very nice. She's smart.
Very smart.
I never say that about someone's profile picture. Like, oh yeah, she seems smart.
You look sharp. Mass accent and all. You look sharp. Harvard Business Review had an article out that said something about I get it.
You're not smart enough to read Harvard.
I don't even know what happened here today. But so Harvard Business Review, is your team overworking but underperforming? I bet you've never heard anything like that before in any team, in any company that you've ever worked in, especially in the last 3 years.
No, for sure not.
Wherein which, everyone seems so harried, so busy, they're performing, but what the heck, what's going even on?
Like, what output are you seeing? What results are you getting from that output?
Right. Like, are you just walking around like a whole bunch of, dull blades?
Or are you burning people out for no reason?
So here is two equally important forms: effort to perform and effort to improve. What it all boiled down to is essentially learning. What they're saying is, and this is crazy. So where is it? An example, a Harvard Medical School meta-analysis concluded that on average, the more years a general physician practices medicine, the worse their patient outcomes become.
Oh God, that's awful.
But think about that. The more time that they've been a doctor, medical professional, they don't stress doctor.
That's awful.
Like, they get worse at it. And the reason they get worse at it is because they're just executing. They're not reskilling. They're not
doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, they're just.
My dad had that criticism when I was in school. I did not like my math teacher at all. He was terrible. And my dad said some teachers just learn the curriculum and teach the same curriculum that way for their entire career, and he's one of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's something to it. I'll go on to share a little.
You have to grow and improve and change what you're doing. But wait, though, so why would patient outcomes get worse when you're doing the same thing? Should they not stay the same?
Because they say, I know what I'm doing. Okay. I know all the steps. I know this recipe. I've made it a million times. Think about it like it's something as basic as pancakes.
Okay.
I've made so many pancakes now. Thanks, Leslie. It is the same thing every single time. 2 cups flour, 1 cup milk, 1 egg, and I think that's it.
So why would you get worse at it? Because you're rushing it or skipping things?
Yeah, or I like get sloppy with my measure or something like that. Or I say, I stirred it enough. Whereas there's a specific amount of stirring that needs to happen to make the batter fluffy. So in medical and in any business, you cut your corners, you assume so you and I have talked a million times, so much so I'm probably going to have to write a book again about action stacks. This really dumb, but really good, simple idea that I had a million years ago when Rob and I were doing stuff like Brave New Year, wherein which an action stack is just a repeatable mini project plan.
Like a punch list.
A punch list. It's a checklist. It's a whatever. When we go to start the show, we open up we should open up an action stack that says,
when I haven't, I've made mistakes.
Is the lighting set up? Did I shut off the air conditioner? Did I, all the things that you can do.
Is my mic connected?
Is my mic connected? Ours is not. But lighting, I went to start the show. I went, hey, maybe we need lighting. If I had a thing in the stack that said lighting,
like I'm sitting in the shade.
Look like I'm a shadow. So that's one reason, is that we don't kind of occupy our thing. The other things the article points to, I'm getting work conversation right now because I asked a question. So the very first thing they said that you should do is you should set the stage for a learning zone, meaning you should say to your team at all times, we need to take and schedule blocks of time to actually rework our work. We have to like reconsider, not plan, one of my least favorite processes, but like we should really review how we're doing the work we're doing. Is there some way I could be doing it better? Can I train myself to do other stuff? Another is
wait, before you move.
Yeah.
I have a corollary thought to that. So
Okay.
I just read Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke.
I love Annie
And
Duke.
one of the ideas that she mentions at the end that I'm like in love with is instead of waiting till everything's over and doing a post-mortem,
Yes.
you do a pre-mortem. So you think about, all right, let's say this thing totally blows up and fails. What would have to happen for that to occur? That way you kind of put on the table, you think about failure, even envision it, think about all the stuff that could happen, and you can plan against it.
A pre-mortem.
Yeah, well, pre-mortem, yeah.
I love it.
But then you turn that on its head and envision success and think about all the things that would have to kind of break your way or that you would have to do for that to occur. So you're planning for both.
Yes.
To get success and to avoid failure.
Right.
Pre-mortem.
I really like that idea.
Yeah, I want to do it. So you'd have more time to do it if you could like automate a bunch of dumb stuff. I have seen some people resistant to automating dumb stuff because maybe they wonder what they're going to do. You could do things like a pre-mortem.
So, it's amazing how people resist automation. And look, we have Chloe in the audience. She's one of the people that teaches Notion and workflows and all those kinds of things for
Chloe's
people
best.
who run their own businesses to say, look, there's a better way you could do this. You can focus on the part that you make the money on versus focus on the stuff that you have to remember to do. And if you have your template set up and you have your sort of plans like a action stack, a lot of that sort of thing really plays in. I think it's amazing how organizations and people in organizations, we humans, tend to throw out all those things that are going to make it so we don't have to use our brain for that. Like, why would we need to use our brain for remembering? Why won't we use it for, moving forward and thinking
Strategizing
and
stuff?
vision and stuff?
Totally. Yeah. And then there's the fact that if you insist on doing things manually because you don't like automation for whatever reason, there will be mistakes.
Right.
And then you'll have to chase the mistakes and figure out what happened and waste time on that. So
It's shenanigans.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you had action stacks, you would be able to say, I remembered to put that we're sponsored by StreamYard at the beginning of the show.
I'm your action stack.
You're my action stack. Just basically disapproving looks. So
StreamYard's probably like, you know what, you guys, it's cool. We don't want this one.
we have at least one new sponsor coming in, by the way. Hello
I'm
to
excited
you.
about that.
Yeah. And with it, another project, kind of like the whale time, what would you do with some Johnsonville sausage?
I love that kind of stuff.
So, and it's in your alley because I think you've told me before you like baking. So there is an
I
opportunity.
do like baking. I like it because you have to concentrate on it. And if you don't, then it turns out badly. So it's kind of meditation. It's like you have to measure and pay attention to what you're doing. You can't be thinking about something else. Like cooking, you could like angry cook. You can't angry bake.
That's a very good point. Rob Hatch has put success in your way, or putting success in your way. And he always had this thing where he says, the more things you can handle to remove decision fatigue matters. Chloe's saying, I love automating and templating dumb stuff because decision fatigue sucks. My world is set up like that. I have my shirts. I'm looking at them. My shirts are on the left side. My pants are on the right side. I've got a box full of underpants.
I'm not confirming.
Like all of this stuff, all of this stuff is just easy to grab off a thing. Left hand for the shirt, right hand for the pants. I'm handled, right? I don't have to think. They more or less go together. Occasionally I might have like, olive colored pants and I'll accidentally grab an olive colored shirt, but I mostly have things that match.
But you don't need to make that decision. That's not a high stakes decision.
No.
Like you make high stakes decisions.
Right.
I make like decisions. They're not high stakes decisions.
They matter.
You make high stakes decisions. You need to like focus your energy on that.
They matter.
But even so, I still think there is room if you automate the dumb stuff like Chloe and I are saying.
Yep.
There is room for even a job that like has historically been kind of tactic oriented to grow in importance and strategy
100%.
and innovation because you automate the dumb stuff.
100%. And I think it's and the other thing too is I wonder if this is true. Tell me your kind of emotional feedback, and people watching, feel free to leave a comment. I think that we, for some reason, think that we would be perceived as stupid if we had things like a checklist. Like, people may or may not be like, oh my God, are you really referring to a checklist as you do this thing? That kind of a feeling. And the reason I was thinking about that was that my boss said to me very early in working with him directly, journaling is really good for you. It really helps you remember some of this stuff. It helps you not have to think back. You could just look back on your notes, and the better your note system, the better you go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you're so right. And then I did not journal. And then I was like, you're so right. And then I kind of journaled pathetically. And then the one or two times he said, hey, do you remember this thing? And I was like, and I barely had the notes to support it. Then I learned how to journal better. Do you think that people look at that stuff negatively?
I don't know if they look at it, maybe a little bit. So what I keep hearing is we don't want to over-engineer things. People kind of, they resist sometimes having a process because they feel like it hampers creativity. But that's not so. Some consistency and predictability in the process frees you up to think creatively about the rest of it, because you're not like belaboring these dumb parts.
Right. I one of the subreddits I like to look at is people sort of figuring out how to cook kind of thing. So they're asking really, really basic questions, so much so that you sort of realize, oh my gosh, like people don't realize that if the most basic thoughts in cooking are, do you have some kind of a protein? Do you have some kind of a side that goes with the protein? Do you need anything to sort of fill the space in between all those two things?
Listen, there's people that eat a whole box of stuffing and that's all they eat.
They're
called college students.
Stuffing is delicious. But yeah, so people don't realize that, like planning meals, you might start with a vegetable first, and you have to build your meal around something.
Well, then there's other people that don't realize like sugar will caramelize, like if you make it too hot.
Right.
Because that's the thing.
The mechanics of it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to know the rules before you can break them. Like it's
100%.
Rule.
That is the rule.
To be broken.
So things like journaling and note taking and all that are important. I wanted to share one thing that I found interesting. You and I had this conversation. It's amazing how people get sort of cultish around some of their technologies. They're like, I really, really support this one or whatever. Yeah. Is my Twitter grayed out? Does that mean like it thinks I'm not connected to it?
I don't know. Try it.
Some
click the drop down.
What's this thing do?
Now you could. Oh, no, you're live.
Okay. All right. I don't know. Look, yours is dark. Yours is like regular. Mine's dim. Maybe I'm just dim.
Maybe that's it.
All right. Okay. Look. So I like this note-taking app.
Get you to bed, Grandpa.
Shut up. I like this note-taking app called Obsidian. And I was reading this article on Fast Company that is like way late on the storyline of this, but whatever.
Oh, like they're just discovering it?
Yeah. Like they just figured it out.
You've been here the whole time.
People are obsessed with Obsidian. Why do people love it? And basically it just sort of walks through this particular note-taking app and what do people like about it. There's a fellow who wrote his name is Nick Milo. He wrote a really great tutorial. It's on YouTube. He explains that sort of learning how to think with notes is important, and how to kind of synthesize notes into something that you can use. I just realized I'm scrolling the wrong screen.
No, this is Nick Milo.
No, but I was on another whole version of the same screen, scrolling it like I'm like being a good host. I just got this software. I don't know. It's brand new. I don't know. So anyway, my point of bringing that up and things like Obsidian is just the fact that that's my tool for note taking. Other people like a lot more robust thing like Notepad. The thing I've liked about Obsidian is it's not robust. It writes files in basic .md, which is Markdown. Any Mac in the world, you could just open it. Any PC in the world, you can more or less open it. It may or may not have some formatting. What do they call them? Artifacts. But the point is that when you start a journaling system for work and business, in this case, not just your life, you have recall. You can recall stuff better and faster and easier. I now send my CEO a weekly summary. I sent it an hour ago. It's Friday the 13th, by the way. So I sent a summary, and I drew a cute little picture on it. So I send a summary of the week's highlights and things that I want them to keep top of mind. And I do that because I just dump stuff out of my Obsidian into a document and then send the document. And only because I don't want to give them access to all of my notes and thinking, I give them the cream.
So is that why you don't do it like in Google Docs where people can stumble upon it?
Well, I don't mind if he stumbles upon it, but Obsidian has tools that Google Docs doesn't have in the linking method.
Okay.
I can basically, as I'm typing, as something comes up and I think, oh, I want to refer to this note that Jill had, I can type open bracket and it'll say, what note do you want to add here? And I'll type JA for Jill Adams and boom, it'll drop it right in. And then as I'm referring to things, I then have at least my sort of train of thought, because the more I
I'll
put
watch a
into
demo
it,
later.
demo's better. So I guess where I was
Thanks,
going,
YouTube.
where I was going with the storyline there is that
You're cultish about your.
no, where I was going with this story, you boob, is that the people who journal for business, like people who use things like action stacks for business, come off better in what they're doing because they have this recall and this activity. I'm not the best note taker still. I use the tools, but I I'm like a guy in a kitchen with a really great knife. I can cut things, but it's clear I've never been to chef school or cut like 8,000 onions or whatever.
But we're both fans of Tamsin Webster, and she's talked about this multiple times, how you don't want to be like impromptu with your speaking. You just want to look impromptu. So like if you watch Chris Rock, is that the one? She's always shows you preparing a bit and you can see the bit when it's performed.
Yes.
The exact same movements at the exact same part of the bit every time he does it over and over and over. And that only comes from precision and practice. So he's not walking along like just making it up. It just looks like he is. I think it's the same way where people feel like they can just wing it or something for a simple thing like an email campaign, but you can't really, because that having it come off smoothly is the product of preparation.
That's right. Preparation gets you to that product.
Yeah.
You're so right. Carol's pointing out that this is making her think about Annie Murphy Paul's book, The Extended Mind, The Power of Thinking Outside the Brain. So this is a new thing that's going out there in the world. There's this whole thing about people doing this sort of thing. Tiago Forte is the other one I'm thinking of, on building a second brain is the name of his book. I'm just trying to get, it's just building a second brain.
I totally had piano forte in my head, just so you know. Oh,
so this guy, Tiago Forte, has a book like that called Building a Second Brain. So that whole concept, this idea about the idea of having it available like that gives you so many more places to reach from, which is what you were kind of saying too. And Carol's saying, I'm a terrible winger. You don't have to if you're great at the practice and the prep. And that's, to make it personal to me for a minute, I love winging it. That's my favorite kind of speech to give. And what I learned is that might not be the best kind of speech to have given. I learned that a lot of people would, react positively to my winging it, but like there was no structural thing to go back and refer to again. Like if you give people signposts along the way that they can forever sing along with your song, then they do a lot better of sort of absorbing that song and doing more stuff with it.
Tamsin Webster and the red thread, like you have to architect kind of your message and structure it in a way so that you're maximizing information transfer and retention and application, because you're not telling people things for fun and games, as my mom would have said. You're telling them because you're hoping they'll do something.
Like fun, you will.
The information. My mom used to be like, what do you think this is? Fun and games? Surprise.
Right. Now, you and I had...
I don't know why the surprise. Like I was...
She'd say surprise like
that?
like
surprise, it's not fun and games.
That's really funny. Well, that's interesting. I'll pass this one thing on too, because Carol said she read both books back to back. There's less overlap than you'd think across the two books. They reference each other multiple times. That's kind of interesting. Chris demonstrated excellent winging it last week with his leadership answer. Oh, thanks. No, I mean, but, let me talk about that too. Yo-Yo Ma said this too. Someone once asked Yo-Yo Ma, why do you practice cello 4 hours a day? You're Yo-Yo Ma. And he said, I'm Yo-Yo Ma because I practice cello 4 hours a day. People say to me all the time, how do you come up with information so easily all the time? Because I do it every day. Yeah. Every day. Days off, sleeping, weekends.
Well, you're not making it up. It's in your mind.
I'm synthesizing from past collection.
And you're not, so when you memorize stuff or try to deliver it kind of for a speech or something, let's say there's people who memorize their speech, try to do it really quick. That's not how it works. It's still taking up your working memory. You can still get sidetracked and forget things. Once it becomes so integrated, so part of your regular memory, you're kind of like permanent storage, then you can riff all you want. You've got that solid
100%.
foundation.
Domain mastery.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Domain mastery, when you like, this is my thing.
Yeah.
I just put out a sales offer in my newsletter today. I just sent a quick note saying, hey, anyone want to buy some of this? Because I need some.
I'm going to go shopping.
Shush. So this one person was like, hey, do you know how to do this? I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like my bread and butter thing. It comes from decades of stuff. And the thing they asked for just happened to be right down the middle of as far back as my age 16.
So you have obsidian like in your brain for stuff.
I try not to because of what I've
learned.
No,
but you do. Like, I mean,
I know what you mean.
So yes, you want to have both,
Yeah.
but you do. That's how you come up with answers so quickly.
Correct.
Because you have like a mind palace.
Which is where, like a mind palace, more like a mind trailer park, but it's like,
a mind pawn shop.
This is where what's his face was going. Gladwell was going with his 10,000 hours. Mm-hmm. People hook on the wrong part of that, the same way they hooked on the wrong part of Ferris's 4-hour work day or whatever work week. They hook on the part where it's like you could do a lot with little. But what he was really saying was, if you systematize and automate, which is our topic today, then you don't have to spend as much time doing the dumb part.
Build the solid foundation, and when that stuff is all working correctly, then you'll be able to achieve mastery in other areas. And then you can move on to more after that. It's like you get better and better and better at more things if you can just lock down the dumb stuff.
100%. And repetition, because this comment was all about, if you're going to do note taking and journaling and all that, you reinforce your stories by the sort of links and the mental links to it.
Yeah.
Reinforce it.
The more ways you can get to that thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I associate all the things Thames and Webster said with a bunch of other things, and a lot of things I just read in Annie Duke's book, but I have a lifetime of those things that I cross-reference.
I think that's a risk when people read lots, when people kind of overread because I'm a passionate learner. I want to learn a lot of things. I want to read a lot of books. I think that you run a risk. I mean, I took a year where I said I was going to read only 3 books.
Oh my God, I kind of remember this.
It was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I kind of like the idea still, but the premise was maybe we're just filling our brain way too much with some shenanigans. Maybe we need to.
It is if you're just passively taking it in,
but if you're reading,
thinking about it, it's like active listening versus, just sitting there and not talking. Like if you're actively listening, you're kind of rephrasing in your mind what they're saying. You're relating it to other things. You're trying to mirror back to them what they say. You're really trying to get the info. It's different than just sitting there while it washes over you.
I feel you're very right. I feel that there is a big difference. I was going to go in a whole other analogy, but I'll go with what you said so I can show I'm marrying it back to you. Yes, I think that you can sort of just let information hit you, but you could also, I think sometimes people want to learn. I just want to learn some things. I think it always works better when you're like, I want to learn some things that are going to be germane to the challenges I'm facing right now. So when anytime someone says to me, what book should I read next? I always say, what are you working on? What's your big challenge? I think that I think thoughts and learning and all that sort of work best like a tidal pool. What do I mean by that? Life doesn't exist in the pool. Life exists right at the edges of the pool where there's still a little more turbulence. Like we would not have had life if everything was too stagnant. We would not have had life if everything was flowing all the time. We needed just a blend. So I think learning works that way too. I think if you get, I love kitchen analogies. I can't help myself. If you get like really good at making 8 or 9 dishes and you make those dishes flawlessly, there's something to that. But then at some point it's going to be stale. Your restaurant's going to collapse because no one wants just the 8 or 9 dishes. They want something new. They want Asian fusion. Sorry, too many of those at too many meetings. So if you do some change ups, then you will grow and put new stuff in. I think there's something to that. Do you remember whether or not Annie Duke covered that at all in her thinking in her bets?
I mean, the whole thing is that the premise of the book really is that poker players make decisions with incomplete information all the time, but we don't realize we are all doing that all the time. So we tend to judge the quality of our decisions on the results.
Yeah.
And then it sort of becomes locked in our mind that was like always the outcome from that decision. And therefore it was a bad decision or a good decision. Not true. There were plenty of things that we had no control over, didn't know, that affected the results, but our decision-making process could have been perfectly solid. So it's interesting. And so she's got a lot of different approaches you apply to reach, better results more consistently by acknowledging the fact that we are all, looking at only some of the cards in the deck.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it's great. It applies to everything we do all the time.
That's cool.
Never got to constructive feedback, but I mean, it kind of
No.
relates because some of the constructive feedback I would offer is go ahead and automate the stuff.
That's just feedback.
I think you'll find that actually does quite a lot of good for you.
Yeah. Well, so I have been invited by the company, my company, AppFire, that I work at.
I haven't heard of them.
Yeah.
What do they do?
I think they sell fire suppression systems. So I was invited to give a talk on delivering difficult feedback to people. Like, you know, some of my conversations are with people who are
you never do that
in a tight spot, you know, like I have to say to someone, hey, things sure aren't working the way everyone wishes they were working right now or whatever. And so I'm going to give a talk about that. And someone in another context asked me, hey, can you talk about just in general constructive feedback? Because a lot of times people jump right to being defensive or sort of like, why not? Like, hey, do you think you could do this? Because they're trying to edge them towards a better relationship. And what they get back instead is like, no, or no, and here's why. And then they start building their case really fast.
Well, so there's something, so if you're like, how can I get people to take constructive feedback better? My first question is, how are you delivering it?
That's a great question.
You know, because it's possible that the way it's presented is not conducive to them taking it.
I mean, that's a great, so in the conversations I have, like if I'm talking to someone sort of about how their career might not be fully in alignment or their current role, not so I say career, because that sounds like the body of your work.
Yeah.
But if the current role, like they may or may not be acting in alignment with the rest of the way the world is working. You know, I might say, I always start with like right off the bat, like I want to talk to you about some things. I want to talk about some stuff going on with how it's being perceived, how you're working right now. I want to immediately get to the crux of the conversation so that they can get their belly
anxiety out of the way.
Yeah, I want to diffuse anxiety. And then what I often try to do, almost immediately, the next thing I try to do is take away some of the emotional part of it as best I can. Because a lot of times when you hear constructive feedback, we can't help but think, what did I do wrong? And I think it's a basic human reasonable thing. And it is clear that it is something needs to be done. So it is technically wrong, but that's not the right framing, because I'm not saying you did something wrong. I need you to do something different than what you're doing.
Remember too, though, that you still are operating with only some of the cards in the deck, and there might be stuff that you don't know.
100%.
So I think like the crucial conversations course that we all take at Fire is actually great for that. It's like you, instead of constructing a whole story around what this person did or didn't do based on your assumptions you're making, you lay out the facts. You've been late to every staff meeting for the past month. It's making it difficult for us to have to go back over, you know, some of the things that you missed because they are important. What's going on? And then you find out that maybe they have like a kid in the hospital,
sick relative.
There's definitely stuff you don't know. Instead of being like, Paul doesn't give a crap about this, he's late all the time. And then you bring to that conversation that animus, and it colors their response to your constructive feedback.
Right. It's a very good point. And feeling heard is one of humankind's big needs. You know, feeling wanted is number one.
Yeah.
Humankind's greatest need is the need to feel wanted, but to feel heard and understood is so important. I had feedback I had to give to someone where I was like, oh, this experience happened. I think you're kind of sticking to your guns about something where maybe the intent is a little off. And can we talk about that for a minute? Because I think you have the right intention. I think you have the right energy around it. I think maybe we're just kind of aiming at the wrong piece of the part you want to hold on to. Can we talk about that? I love to ask the question, can we talk about that? Because I'm inviting the person.
They're not gonna be like, no, go away.
Right. But it does, there is a sense of agency. You know what I mean? Like at least they can feel like, okay,
participating in the conversation with you.
Right.
Especially it can be hard because it's different for me as like a managing editor to be talking with a writer than it is for you as like a chief executive or whatever to be talking to somebody, you know, 3-4 levels below you in the pecking order. You have to be a little more careful how you deliver constructive feedback because it can feel like punching down.
Boy, can it. And I had to learn that. I would be like, hey, just want to give you some ideas. And they'd come away going, oh my gosh, the chief of staff said this. And I'd be like, oh, I just meant it like guy you work with.
Yeah.
But, so I do have to disarm that. That's a good point.
Ooh, look, change is scary, but good change management is a priceless skill. Oh boy.
Oh.
So Jenny Magic and is Aaron Brecker?
I think so.
Melissa Brecker. Sorry, Melissa Brecker. Change fatigue.
Yeah,
Great
we
book,
had them on the
all
show.
about change management.
Oh, Simon, who we work with, just saw that episode and just bought the book.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Love it.
Just said I'm going to read that on my way down
I
to the
gave that book
partner
away
event.
to people. Like I have a copy and I gave it away to people and I gave away Thinking in Bets. I love to give people books that I found helpful.
Yeah. What was their
Yeah.
book called? Change Fatigue?
We should do another book giveaway sometime.
Yeah.
Maybe early next year.
Ooh, early next year. We're getting closer and closer.
Well, I'm actually trying to time it with some of the horror authors I love who are releasing.
Oh, I see. Lynn Joy put out a new book, by the way.
Wabgishig Rice had a follow-up to Moon of the Crusted Snow.
What the hell? What's the name of that book? Or is it a book?
Moon of
No. Jenny Magic.
Oh, Change Fatigue.
I thought so, but I didn't find it.
Did you spell fatigue wrong?
Fatty Gay.
It's totally there. Just look up how many books can Jenny Magic have? Come on.
I just did that.
How many Jenny Magics?
Is her name spelled the normal
Are you in
way?
a weird category or something?
M-A-G-A-C. Oh, I'm
Audible books.
Audible.
So she just doesn't have an Audible book yet.
Oh, you son.
Jenny, you need an Audible book.
You need to get your
Get your
dip tat.
Audible book.
Oh my gosh. Go get your
There
dip
it is.
tab.
Just came out May 5th, 2023. And when we talked to Jenny and Melissa about this, they said that they had to go back and actually make changes to their change book because of the pandemic and stuff. And like everybody's working remote. Like they had to practice what they preach
They really
in the
did.
context of publishing this book.
That was exciting too. They're an interesting pair, by the way. Speak about dynamics and communication, and all that sort of a thing. They were a very interesting pair because Jenny is clearly like the more, let's say, packaged.
Mhm.
She's great at orating and narrating. She's got her talk track down very well.
The sound bites and stuff.
Sound bites. And Melissa has a vast wealth of experience to pull from.
Enterprise experience, which is
Even better.
Yeah.
Well, for me.
for me.
But yeah.
They're both fantastic though. But read
It
that
was
book.
a great conversation for
good.
those reasons. So
Yeah.
it's
Love me
great.
some books.
Hey, look, Dustin's here.
Hey, so you apparently are you on?
I guess I am on
Twitter.
We're not going to call it X. Good to see you though, Dustin. By the way, ever since converting to X, I don't know how many times clicked that instead of the X to close the tab.
Oh.
Like I'll go, okay, I'm done with, oh. I don't know how many times. Thanks, Elon Musk.
I'm just wait. It's gonna fall down.
I had a whole bunch of other topics I wanted to cover. Do you want to? Let's just lightning round them or something. I
All
don't know. I was saying that.
Maybe like, okay, is it 5 minutes ago or over?
So you might, or I'm not even talking to you. Excuse me. So do you know?
That was like last week's show. Your
Just
favorite
me.
shows.
It's just me. Do you know that science fiction tends to be the place where we get to see a better window into people's anxiety?
Hmm.
So they use science fiction as a proxy to say, this is troubling us. We need to come up with some way to explain it.
Mhm.
Gareth Edwards just put out the movie The Creator.
Mhm.
It is a movie about AI. There's a war on in 2067 or something like this between artificial intelligence and like robots that are called simulants and humans. And so the whole concept is that AI supposedly blew up LA, and now the humans are going to fight back and destroy the AI because they're worried that they're going to get replaced in the evolution.
Well, if Terminator has taught us anything,
It's
robots
coming.
are
It's going to
bad.
happen.
Yeah.
So I would say that it's interesting, though, that this is the new topic. AI is bad. There's been other AI movies, obviously. Terminator being an example of robots being led by Skynet. But it's interesting that it's come back around again. Like, oh no, there's AI evil AI. So I think it's weird.
I was just saying this morning how like all the crypto bros are now AI bros. Like that's
Oh my
that's why I'm
gosh.
not worried about it.
Oh
AI
my
will be
gosh.
like over and like into the next phase, like more mainstream before you know it, because now the bros are here.
As a
Once
large,
the bros are there, once they get their bag,
Mm.
everything is flattens out.
As a large language model, I can either confirm or deny that you're probably correct about that. But yeah, it is crazy. Then there's, one of the things that we do talk a lot about, the world talks a lot about, not us, unintended consequences. That's always the thing. So, we make AI. Well, Mark Zuckerberg just released that his Llama 2, which is their limited language model, large language model learning thing, it's more or less open source. There's a few rules, but you can more or less just have it. And that's interesting. Although a lot of people said, holy cow, you can ask this thing how to weaponize anthrax. And it goes, sure, I'll tell you.
Holy llama.
Because without someone there to kind of protect it, that's the kinds of, unintended consequences that can happen. I heard of another one. It turns out that Apple, who created those AirTags to say, now you don't have to worry if you lose your luggage.
Yeah. People
are using them for stalking. Massive amount of police reports of stalking.
This is why we can't have nice things, you guys. This is why.
Utterly.
AI is Web 4.
Yep. Yeah, see?
So like when marketers come to a social network, it's getting to be 5 minutes ago, almost over.
Well, speaking of these things, let's go back to AI and not go with Apple's AirTags. I just found that story crazy, like that people are buying AirTags. It's so depressing,
but it doesn't surprise me at all.
Right. It's like
whatever the lowest, worst use you can imagine, that will happen. People aren't doing pre-mortems for this stuff. They could avoid these unintended consequences.
I always feel like there's a guy in every meeting or person in every meeting that's always like, well, what if someone uses them to stalk people? Well,
settle down, John.
That's an edge case.
Yeah, probably.
And they get talked off.
But this is part of being a lawyer. You're like, okay, fine. So it's like not that likely, but if it does happen, and it could happen, then the consequences would be extremely bad.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to like do the math on that. I guess like car manufacturers do the math on recalls when they're like, yeah, but it's only like 6 families get barbecued in their car.
I bet there's a term of service that says, please don't use this for stalking or something in the AirTag. You know that they will.
Right, because stalkers are so polite.
Yeah.
They're just rule followers.
You know how that is. So Dustin says Llama's open source. It's great for novelists because having it assist them with battle scenes doesn't get flagged for violent content. See, I see what you're saying. Yeah, Makes sense.
We did it. You even thanked the advertisers.
I did thank the advertisers. What was I going to say? I had one more thing.
Just how is the AI going to replicate?
Oh. There's 2 things. That's where I was going. Thank you. That was really weird. Thank you. There's 2. One is that there's a new bill going through U.S. Congress right now saying it's called the No Fakes Act, basically to protect actors and singers from unauthorized AI replicas, which makes sense, right? Like somebody like Tom Hanks says, I don't want to star in Cars 5, and Disney goes, haha, too bad for you. We've scanned you.
Well, I mean, you can't do that. So the laws already exist for things like right of publicity. You have the right of, to your own image and your name in relation to publicity. So they can't like sell stuff with your name and face that you're not involved with, right? So you kind of extend that just a little bit into a space we never thought we'd have to go. And be like, yes, please don't deep fake Tom Hanks into your movie.
Right.
And
maybe don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
So that was one. Man, this show's going late today. And then the other one I had.
Nobody knows what was on your list.
Yeah, I know. Oh, we were talking about things like LLMs. We talked about, what Dustin said about why you'd have Llama with the kind of, chains off, so to speak. Google, there's been a whole bunch of leaks inside Google saying that the employees think LLMs are baloney. And they think Bard is stupid, and they are so grumpy that Sundar Pichai is like putting so much money into it because he's like, it's dumb, it's a fad. That's what the people in Google are saying. So it makes you ask a couple of questions. One, yes, I think the way that we're using things like ChatGPT are very overhyped right now, but it would be really dumb to say there's nothing to it and that you shouldn't be doing some more stuff and that Bard doesn't have a chance to leapfrog. But if they're getting so much resistance to change inside, and if they are not able to manage constructive feedback,
look at you
then maybe they're going to run into some trouble.
I bet your grandma was great with constructive feedback.
Oh, let me tell you what my grandma was with the finger, and she would do. No sudden moves.